والله يدعو إلى دار السلام ويهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم.
مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت 7 سنابل
وكل في فلك يسبحون
ويخلق ما لا تعلمون.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to, unfortunately, the last episode of our program, the Universal Quran. Inshallah, I hope that we could meet, inshallah, next Ramadan in a good chance, and the situation will be much better, the situation of the whole Ummah and the situation of Muslims themselves. And inshallah, we will become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be more righteous and be more pious. This episode, we could say, will have just a look about all the things we said before. We'll just have a general idea about the surah as we discussed, and remind myself first and remind you again of the lessons that could be extracted from each of the surahs. You remember, in the beginning we talked about chapter of Al-Hujurat, or the private apartments. And the surah started with a call for all believers to not to make any decision or anything like that before the one of the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and before the one of the Prophet. The Quran has laid down the principle and gave us a final order that none of the believing men or women should have any kind of choice or should have any kind of alternative when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger decide something. The verse again in Surah Al-Ahzab, وَمَا كَانَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَن يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. So once you hear the Prophet says so, you have to submit, you have to listen. Once you hear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says so and so, you have no other alternative, and you have no way to argue, or you have no way to debate and say, I like this part, I don't like this part. No, it's not a matter of liking or disliking, it's a matter of complete will, complete surrender to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything, in every part of your life. And then the verse after that orders us not to raise our voices, or maybe the way of addressing was to the companions, not to raise their voice over that of the Prophet. And again, I said before, we should apply this verse to our current life and to our temporary situation. I mean, in the presence of scholars, you need to be more humble, and you need, of course, to follow the method that the companions used to do with the Prophet ﷺ. And after that, the verses move to talk about another issue, which is bad or false news or false reports. We need to verify. If somebody, for example, told me that my brother or my colleague or my friend is talking about me or said something wrong, first of all, you have to investigate the whole issue, and you are recommended by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive. But you need to clarify the situation first, and you need to clear yourself out of that. And after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about also if two Muslim parties or groups fought each other, then a third party must try to bring them to reconciliation, and the whole groups must be returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Allah says, فَإِن تَنَزَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. If you are debating about an issue, your main book for guidance is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala book, the Quran, and then the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. If you can't find anything in them, then you need to consult your opinions, you need to consult the scholars, the imams of fiqh, and so on, until you reach a decision. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if among the two groups one of them is transgressing, so this transgressing group must be returned back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and must be returned to the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the verses move to talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says believers are but a single brotherhood. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ. So the whole Muslim community must be one ummah, must be one nation. They should care for each other. The issue of one person is the issue of the whole community, is the issue of the whole ummah. And that should be their main concern, as the Prophet said, مثل المؤمنين في تودهم وتراحمهم كمثل الجسد الواحد إذا اشتكى منه عضو تداعى له سائر الجسد بالسهر والحمى. The example of the whole Muslim Ummah is exactly like one body. If part of this body feels ill, the whole body will feel ill at the same time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to be united in all situations. If we can unite ourselves and leave our differences, then we will win all other nations, and we will dominate and will control the whole universe. But as long as we are committed to our differences and to our disputes, we will never have any chance to win and to get any kind of success. Allah warned us against that. He said, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ. Obey Allah and His Messenger, and don't dispute over with each other, or don't argue with each other unless your power might leave you and you will have no way to success and to succeed. After that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is prohibiting or forbidding us from making any kind of mockery or making any fun between men and women, or a man is not allowed to mock his brother, and the woman is not allowed to mock her sister, because some might be better than the others. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that you shouldn't do that, and you shouldn't also call by names or by nicknames that people do not like. If somebody doesn't like one of his has got a nickname and he doesn't like it, then you shouldn't call him by the name he doesn't like, or you shouldn't irritate or make him angry because of any of the features or any of maybe shortcomings that he has. This is not accepted in Islam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after that He says, اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم. Avoid as much as you can any kind of suspicion. You shouldn't have any suspicion against your brother unless this person himself is prone for such suspicion, or he made. You need to verify and you need to make sure of any news or any report you receive from any person about another brother. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after that He said about equality among all people. إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ مِنْ ذَكَرٍ وَأُنْثَى وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا, and then إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. So all people before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are equal. The only criterion is the issue of piety, the issue of righteousness. Otherwise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't look at anything else. As we have the hadith in which the Prophet says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَى صُوَرِكُمْ وَلَا إِلَى وُجُوهِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ يَنْظُرُ إِلَى قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُمْ. Allah doesn't look at your faces and your appearance, but He looks at your hearts. So you need to take care of that. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ خَبِيرٌ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after that He says, يَمُنُّونَ عَلَيْكَ أَنْ أَسْلَمُوا. They exactly count or regard their belief or their Islam as a matter of favor to you, but this is not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who bestows upon you mercy and who bestows upon you His pleasures and His favors. And the surah ends with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ غَيْبَ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاللَّهُ بَصِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has got full knowledge about the unseen, has got full knowledge about everything which will happen, has got full knowledge about everything that happened and which happens, for example now. يَعْلَمُ غَيْبَ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. So everything in the whole universe is clear before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He has got full knowledge about it. As He says in another surah, Surah Saba, لا يعزب عنه مثقال ذرة في الأرض ولا في السماء ولا أصغر من ذلك ولا أكبر إلا في كتاب مبين. Even very, very minute or little things like an atom, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of course has full knowledge about all these things. And then after that we talked about a chapter of Al-Insan, and the surah starts with a kind of query or a kind of a question about that the man, for example, he had been nothing and he was not something to be mentioned. And this is to remind you of your nature and how you were created, and not to forget that you are merely nothing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to judge or to weigh your deeds, and if they are good, that's fine. If they are not, then nobody be blamed but you. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about how man was created. إِنَّا خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ نُطْفَةٍ أَمْشَاجٍ نَبْتَلِيهِ. He was created from sperm, and he was created from mixed fluid from man and woman. And in all of that, just in order to try or to test him and to know who is the good and who is the bad. And then the surah after that moves to talk about the blessings and the pleasures of the people of paradise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الْأَبْرَارَ يَشْرَبُونَ مِنْ كَأْسٍ كَانَ مِزَاجُهَا كَافُورًا عَيْنًا يَشْرَبُ بِهَا عِبَادُ اللَّهِ يَفْجُرُونَ تَفْجِيرًا يُوفُونَ بِالنَّذْرِ, and so on. So the verses here are talking about Abrar, are talking about the righteous ones, are talking about the pious, are talking about those who dedicated their lives for the service and worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then, because of all these sufferings they gone through, because, for example, to pray the Fajr while it is very cold and you find, for example, no hot water, it's a kind of suffering. To go for the mosque, which is quite far away from you, this is a kind of suffering. To go in such ways, or for example, to try to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in an non-Muslim country, and you might be offended by some idiot people, and they would accuse you, for example, of being terrorists and all these things. This is a kind of jihad for which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the best reward, and for which you might be included among the Abrar, about whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cited all these verses in Al-Abrar yashrabuna min ka'sin. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here counted their characteristics by saying, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving more details about the features of those people by saying, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ, they give food and they give support for other people, although they might be in need for something like that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us the pleasures of paradise, and how does it look like, and what the people would find there. They would find, for example, young boys who will look like pearl, and they would find trees coming closer to them, and over there will find things that have never dreamt about and things that have never imagined before, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَلَا تَعْلَمْ نَفْسٌ مَا أُخْفِيَ لَهُم مِّن قُرَّةِ أَعْيُنٍ. Nobody has ever dreamt about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared for the people of paradise. And then He says, إِنَّ هَذَا كَانَ لَكُمْ جَزَاءً وَكَانَ سَعْيُكُمْ مَشْكُورًا. Indeed, this is the best reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared for the righteous and for the good people, and their endeavors, their attempts to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have been accepted by Him. And then the verses talk about the Quran that was revealed in different stages and in the period which is around 23 years. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends the surah with saying, إِنَّ هَذِهِ تَذْكِرَةٌ. The whole surah is a kind of admonition to you, just to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and just to try to be among this very selected group, which is the group of Al-Abrar, about whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been pleased with, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted and approved their deeds. If we move to the third surah we talked about, which is An-Naba, and the surah starts with also a query about the people. They were asking about the great news. Mufassirun said it means the Quran, and some others said it means the Day of Judgment. And again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us of the gifts that He bestowed upon us. أَلَمْ نَجْعَلْ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا. He made the earth as a cradle for you, and He gave us water through the clouds and in great mountains, and He created, for example, for the male, a female, and after that He gave us the light by the sun during the day and the moon during the night. And after that the verses move, after showing all these blessings, then the Day of Judgment, the day of the final decision is going to come place. In that day we will have two groups: the group of the transgressors, at-taghin, and then those who oppress people. Their punishment will be to stay in hell for a very long time, لَابِثِينَ فِي أَحْقَابَ, for long years, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only knows about when these long years will end. And the second group, إِنَّ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ مَفَازًا, those who are muttaqeen, who feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who were righteous, who observed their religious duties, they will have a kind of gain, they will have a kind of success, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will admit them to paradise. Over there they will have virgin and very, very most beautiful wives as a reward for them. And then the surah also moves to talk about the Day of Judgment again, and what will happen there, where there will be nobody have the chance to speak except by a permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then after that, the disbeliever, he would wished that he would be a mere dust, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he judged among animals, he would say, even the judgment is not only for human beings, but it is for animals also. After that, Allah will say to animals, go and be dust. And then the disbeliever here would wish that he was a mere dust in order to avoid the great horror and the great punishment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared for him.
يهدي به الله من اتبع رضوانه سبل السلام.
Welcome to this new episode of Focus Point.
The new generation has the habit of reading more than before.
Jewish question was basically the problem of Jews who lost their function in society.
يهدي به الله من اتبع رضوانه سبل السلام.
Surah Al-Fajr, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swore here by the time of Fajr in order to show the importance of this, and in order, as Mufassirun say, to show the importance of time itself, which is highly important to anyone and to all people, because it is limited anyway, and the hour which passes will never come back. So you are in need to use every single minute and every second in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You might be in a position which is better than the angels, because the angels, they do not disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is their nature. They were created to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if you spend your life worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and as a human being you have desires, you have passions, you have shortcomings, then you are in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are better than angels if you do not disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after that showed us some stories and some examples of previous nations, like those of Ad, which is the people of Sayyidina Hud alayhi salam, and then what happened to Fir'aun or to Pharaoh and his people, and after that what happened to the people of Sayyidina Salih or Thamud. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about people's reaction towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favors, or towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala trials or tests. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here, stories of disobedience to prophets have been repeated in the Quran in different surahs. We have, for example, a big surah which is Surah Hud, and there is a big story about the people of Hud, and then we have also chapter of Yunus which tells us about the story of Prophet Yunus, and then we have also chapter of Ibrahim which talks about Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, and after that Al-Hijr. So all these surahs have different stories about different people and about the reaction of those people against their prophets. Some of them, for example, they believed in the prophets, and some other prophets were opposed by their people. A very vivid example is the story of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam. He was opposed even by his own son when he said to him, come on and let us try to save ourselves. And his son said to him, I'm going to take shelter in this very high mountain. Sayyidina Nuh said to him, no way, you will never be saved except if you resort to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these stories are to learn and to get examples from them, and not to do the same bad thing that they used to do. And this is the Muslim behavior or the Muslim mentality, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided him to the right path, so he is in need to follow that path. As the Prophet ﷺ said, تَرَكْتُكُمْ عَلَى الْمَحَجَّةِ الْبَيْضَاءِ أَوْ تَرَكْتُكُمْ عَلَيْهَا بَيْضَاء. He left us with the very vivid and with the very clear example. So if somebody, for example, deviates from that right path, so he is mistaken and he is on the wrong way, and he is to be blamed, but not nobody else, because the Prophet ﷺ, he left nothing. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, الْيَوْمَ أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ وَأَتْمَمْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَتِي وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمْ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا. So the Prophet ﷺ, he made it very clear that he completed the message, and he said in a very clear statement, every issue in the Jahiliyyah is under my feet, as he said, in كل أمر الجاهلية تحت قدم هذه. So he brought us with the clear Islam, with the vivid message that left nothing. So you have to be sure that Islam covered all issues, and Islam is the religion which renews itself with all developments and which copes with every modern change. So it's not something old, and it's not something that, as some people unfortunately, they are Muslims, say that Islam is something which is out of date. No, we should stop those people from saying so, and we should refute all these claims. And again, as a Muslim, we must be proud of our religion, and we must be proud of this complete religion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen us and preferred us among millions of people who now we are listening, for example, to something which reminds us of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the same time, you might find some people who are still worshipping cows or worshipping rats or worshipping statues. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us against all these things. So we have been favored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to follow the great message of Islam and to follow Allah's instructions. Refers to the reaction of some people against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessings and favors, and against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests or trials. If somebody was given, for example, abundance in provision, he would say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been honored to me, and if this sustenance was restricted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he would say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala humiliated me. The same thing has been repeated in chapter of Al-Hajj. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ فَإِنْ أَصَابَهُ خَيْرٌ اطْمَأَنَّ بِهِ وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ فِتْنَةٌ انقلب على وجهه خسر الدنيا والآخرة ذلك هو الخسران المبين. The translation here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, there are among men some who are serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as it were on the verge. If good befalls them, they are therewith well content, but if a trial comes to them, they turn on their faces. So this must not be the behavior of a Muslim. You should always be mindful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and thank Him for anything He has given you, whether it is something, for example, pleasing you or something displeasing you, because everything which is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fine, is nice, and we accept it with free will and with complete satisfaction, without single complaint or without one single objection to Allah's order and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sustenance and provision. So in general, these are the main themes or the main issues that the four surahs we discussed have talked about. We need to have more looks at the Quran, and we need to read the Quran as much as you can, because every time you read the Quran you find many secrets, and you find that myself, I find it's amazing. Whenever I read the Quran, I imagine that I read it for the first time. SubhanAllah, this is the miraculous book that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our reading of the Quran in this month, and to make the Quran and the Siyam our intercessors in the Day of Judgment, to gather us with the Prophet sallallahu, and to gather us among the righteous, and to keep all of us away from those who are tyrant or those who are transgressors. And I hope, inshallah, we can meet again in another program next year, inshallah. May Allah accept our good deeds and gather us with the Prophet ﷺ in Jannah, and gather all of us on the Mount of Arafah when we perform Hajj, inshallah, very soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وترى الجبال تحسبها جامدة وهي تمر مر السحاب صنع الله الذي أتقن كل شيء إنه خبير بما تفعلون.
مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت 7 سنابل
وكل في فلك يسبحون.